So, today we're jumping into a really wild court case. It asks a question that, honestly, most of us probably never think about. What actually makes a marriage real in the eyes of the law? And, get this, can you spend more than a decade building a life with someone only to have a court declare that none of it ever legally happened? I mean, really think about that. Can you be married for 12 years and have it not count? It sounds impossible, right? Imagine, you've built a home, you've raised kids, you've done everything a married couple does, and then a judge looks at you and says, nope, none of that was real. This is the crazy question at the very center of this case from the Philippines. So how on earth does something like this happen?
Okay, so meet Sally Go-Bangayan and Benjamin Bangayan Jr. For 12 whole years, from 1982 all the way to 1994, they were, for all intents and purposes, husband and wife. They raised 2 kids together and even bought millions of pesos worth of property. You know, from the outside, they looked like any other family.
And then boom, it all just fell apart. A court didn't just grant them a divorce, it declared their marriage void ab initio. That's a fancy legal term that basically means it was void from the start, as if it never existed at all. It's like taking a 12-year-long chapter of your life and just hitting the delete key. So how? How is that even possible?
Well, to get how a marriage can be erased, we've got to first understand how one is legally created, and the best way to think about it is like a recipe. The law has a very, very specific list of ingredients, and if you're missing even one, the whole thing is a failure. It just doesn't work.
And in the Philippines, the law is unbelievably strict about this. See, marriage isn't just about a ceremony or saying I do. It's a formal, binding, legal contract. And if you don't follow the rules to a T, it simply doesn't count. There are no shortcuts. So, what's in this recipe? The law basically splits it into 2 parts. First, you've got the essential stuff. This is the who and why. You know, are you legally old enough and free to marry? And do you both actually consent? Seems pretty straightforward. But then comes the formal stuff. This is the how and where. Was the person who married you actually authorized to do it? Was there a ceremony? And here's the absolute kicker for this case. Did you have a valid marriage license? If the answer to any of these is no, then legally speaking, you are not married. End of story. And that right there brings us to the fatal flaw in the Bangayan's marriage. One of those critical ingredients was completely missing, and its absence would unravel their entire 12-year life together.
Okay, so here is the first major bombshell. When Benjamin supposedly married Sally in 1982, he was already married. Yep, he had a wife, Azucena Alegre, and that first marriage was still legally valid.
And here it is, the smoking gun. The court did what you'd expect. It checked the records. And what they found was that the marriage license number on Sally and Benjamin's contract was completely fake. The registrar confirmed it. That number was never ever issued to anyone. No license, no marriage. It's that simple.
And that leads to this devastating legal outcome. See, a missing license isn't something you can fix. It doesn't just lead to a divorce. It means, according to the law, you were never married in the first place. It's a complete legal erasure of your status as a married couple.
But hold on, because the story gets even weirder. After all this, Sally turned around and filed a criminal case against Benjamin for bigamy. You know, the crime of being married to 2 people at once. And you will not believe the court's decision on this. It's probably the most counterintuitive part of this whole affair.
I mean, you're probably thinking what I was thinking. This has to be a slam dunk case for bigamy, right? The guy was married, he went through a ceremony with someone else. Case closed. But this is where the law gets super technical, and the distinction it makes is absolutely critical. Just take a look at this comparison. For someone to be guilty of bigamy, that second marriage has to be a real, valid marriage in every single way, except for the fact that, you're already married. But we just established that Benjamin and Sally's marriage was void all on its own because of that fake license. So the court basically said you can't be guilty of entering a second valid marriage if, legally speaking, that second marriage never even existed in the first place. It's a wild loophole, isn't it?
So, okay, if the marriage was a total legal fiction, what about all the very real stuff they bought together? We're talking millions in property accumulated over 12 years. How in the world does a court divide all that up when the normal rules for married couples just don't apply?
Well, they couldn't just split everything down the middle, 50-50. Instead, they had to be treated like business partners, basically. The court had to go through every single property, one by one, and figure out who actually paid for what. And as you can see from this table, the final division was anything but equal. It all boiled down to who had the receipts, literally.
And this is the financial fallout. The court made it crystal clear. Just because a property deed might have said Benjamin married to Sally, that didn't automatically make her an owner. That phrase was just a description of his supposed status, not a legal claim to ownership. And then, and this is the final twist of the knife for Sally, any property that was awarded to Benjamin, well, legally, that now belonged to his actual marriage with his lawful wife, Azucena. Wow.
So after all of that legal drama, what's the big lesson we can pull from this incredible and honestly kind of tragic story? Well, it's about a lot more than just a missing piece of paper. It's really about what the law considers real and what it considers to be just a show.
Because when it came right down to it, the court looked past the ceremony, past the 12 years, and tried to figure out their original intent. And what it found was a sham. They realized the pair had signed that contract not with the real intention of getting legally married, but simply to put on a performance to make Sally's conservative father happy. The court literally called it a simulation, something done in jest. It was basically a prank that ended up having devastating, life-altering consequences.
And that leaves us with this final question. This whole case is just a stark, powerful reminder that in the eyes of the law, a marriage isn't just a promise between two people who love each other. It is a contract with cold, hard rules. And if you don't follow those rules, no matter how real your life together feels, it can all be wiped away. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? How many other people out there might be living in a marriage that legally doesn't even exist?